Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, we are back. It is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 145. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord to West Michigan, Charlie Carden, joined as always by my number one, Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, good morning to you.
Hello.
All right. We've got a great episode, including an awesome co-host in segment 2 that I don't want to spoil. So, but if you've read the description of the episode, it's not really spoiling. But it's TrekCulture's Ellie Littlechild. So super great and excited to record with her. But first and foremost, let's jump into talking about the fantastic people over on our Patreon, Secret Friends Unite. Secret Friend Squad. Well, that was too much verbiage. But at any rate, if you go to patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, you do get the great benefit of early shows like this one. We come out either 1 or 2 days before everybody else gets it. Exclusive shows without ads, and Discord benefits free for 7 days. And then you stay on board for as little as $2 a month. And that is a heck of a lot of entertainment for only $2. These folks know what's going on. My buddy Derek, aka the Figure Dude, Francie, who is my wife's hairdresser, awesome lady, loves our Bad Movies podcast that April and I do. Luke Lore, Mr. Xbox Expansion Pass. My awesome Uncle Tim. On the Friends with Benefits level, we have John Sedorf, the awesome Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, Kelly and Crayley. Crayley just welcomed a new baby girl, I believe, so congratulations there. Brendan Myers, Corey and HD, Matthew Keel, our buddy Kurt Krug, who gets us set up with all those great creatives for the wonderful interviews that we have on our Patreon, and our friend Tanya Lee down there in the Southlands, and our Secret Friends Unite super squad of Sean, Stella, and Henry Nias out there in the Twin Cities. We are very grateful. And very briefly, through the end of April, our Secret Friends Unite Patreon giveaway, sponsored by the Nias family, is still in play. All you have to do to get a free year of our Patreon, all this great bonus content, is send us an email, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. That's all one word with an @ symbol in the middle, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. A couple of people have already got it. There's a few spots left. Drop a line, find out what it's all about, and get it for free. And thank you to the awesome Nias family for helping make that happen. All right. So we have, as we don't always, but we do this go around, a couple of news items to talk about. And again, we were off for a month, which is weird. No, I had, I was down for work. I was down in Atlanta, Georgia for a week for my industry's national convention. I work in the food service equipment world. So it made it not possible to do a show at the beginning of this month. So we missed some stuff. But first and foremost, writer and producer of the 2009 Star Trek movie universe, the Kelvin universe, Robert Orci has passed away at the age of, don't make me math, 52 years old. So, there's a lot that we can say, obviously, about those films, and obviously plenty that you can say about this man's talent, but focusing on those films, while for me it was very much up and down, the second installment not being a favorite of ours, we've talked about it on the show before. There's no doubt that bringing that film back into the theaters when it happened did get the franchise a lot of fans. It put the spotlight on. The show had been, Star Trek itself had been off television for 4 years prior to that. So there's something to be said about that. And it was a successful film by the metrics. I don't know that I would necessarily consider it in any way, shape, or form faithful to Star Trek, but it did turn a lot of eyes, and it was a summer film. It was a tentpole that got people in the door. So other credits include some extensive work with J.J. Abrams, including his 2006 film Mission Impossible 3, and working on the 2007 Transformers movie. Maybe we really shouldn't talk about that. But yes, your thoughts about Mr. Orsi's work?
I mean, he's been involved in some decent projects. I think if he had been able to step out of the Abrams shadow, he may have been able to do some better stuff. I think he did later.
Yeah.
But interesting dude outside of his work on Star Trek. But yeah, it's sad that he has left us, but I mean, yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say, obviously.
No, that's okay. I do find it interesting just reading the notes from this article. And again, we're referencing from trekmovie.com, which is frequently where we get our news from, is that he was a fan since being introduced to Star Trek by his uncle, Richard Rabot, which was the name of the captain of the USS Kelvin that we see at the beginning of the film. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It's always fun when writers are able to throw in little nods to like family and stuff, as long as it's not like, way over the top.
Yeah, exactly. So so rest in peace. Our thoughts go out to his friends and his family at this difficult time. So never easy to lose a loved one. So moving on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he was a couple of years older than me, so I consider in the greater scheme of my things that's young. At least from my perspective. You ask an 18-year-old, I'm equivalent to like a 1,000-year-old, but that's what everybody thinks when they're that age. All right, so here's a bit of news, and I don't know. This is an article from my birthday, Feb 23. So this is going back a little bit, but Shatner, who is in his 90s, good God,
he's 93.
And he's still incredibly active on the con circuit. I saw him.
The con I was at last weekend.
Oh, he was at Lexington. Yeah, that's right. You were in the field last week.
I was.
But he was at Fan Expo Chicago, where our friend Kurt Crew got Todd and I front row seats. Also, I have told the story in the past about how he was on the Star Trek cruise back in 2023 and lambasted me and asking a question when I mentioned something about Star Trek Next Generation, which I just found delightful. I mean, Shatner can't really hurt you. He's an old fella. He's not going to hurt my feelings. First of all, my feelings are pretty hard to hurt, but still, I find it delightful. But yeah, he's still rocking it on the circuit. He's going to be on the cruise next year, which April and I are booked on. We're very excited about that. But he did give a hint in talking at Fan Expo Vancouver late last month about a potential return of Kirk to the big screen. He's quoted as saying, "I have been asked to come back as Kirk many times. If Kirk is going to come back, it has to mean something." Couldn't disagree with that. It has to be the show. But I was impressed by this writer, so I said, let's talk after I'm done in Vancouver. So I'm awaiting a pitch to make it to the show, and it should come Monday or Tuesday. Wow, we've obviously canonically not seen the captain, the character of James C. Kirk since 1994's Star Trek Generations. There was the non-canonical, now I'm going to forget the name of it because it's a bunch of numbers that we got a few months ago that we broke down on the show.
It was Stardate 25 something or other.
Do you see? You don't know it either. At least you said Stardate 25 something.
It's an OTOY video, yeah.
OTOY video, yeah. Which are, while they are non-canonical, they do just an absolutely incredible work.
They are heavily tied to the Roddenberry archive. So
right, exactly.
Canonical is questionable. It's not non-canonical, but it's not canonical.
And the whole debate around canonicity or canonization, or whatever the hell you want to call it, is really perfunctory because, again, things should be about what you enjoy and how you enjoy things. So I'm a canonista. Peter, you are too. We worship at the altar of canon, quite frankly. But that segment was absolutely spectacular, and Shatner did participate along with the great actor Sam Witwer, who also portrayed the physical embodiment of that part. But the question is, how would Shatner fit into Star Trek now? I mean, I assume they are referring to, as it goes on to say, the only two shows we have right now are Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy. Where do you see Shatner being, at least in his estimation, a kind of a pivotal part of a story that it would make sense? What do you think?
So, I don't know if you're familiar with the fan series Star Trek Phase 2 that
Yes.
was earlier Star Trek New Voyages.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they do 2 episodes where they have characters age from their present day to their older selves. So
Oh,
because the
okay.
fan series, they had like a young guy playing Chekhov, and then he aged up, and then it was Walter Koenig. They had a young guy playing Sulu, he aged up, and then it was
George Takei.
George Takei.
Yeah.
My brain's just not with
Hello.
it today.
Names.
Um,
Hello. You're
so
good.
so I think that they could be, if they were doing it in Strange New Worlds, they could do something like that, because they have been, say what you will about it, they have been using younger James Kirk more regularly on that show. And so to do something like that, you could bring Kirk on and have some sort of
Shatner on. Yeah.
bring Shatner on and have
With
some
Paul
sort of
Wesley. Yeah.
alternate version of Kirk, relating either the history that has happened that we know all the way through generations, or an alternate version where, kind of like the final episode of season 1 where Pike talks to himself, and there's that whole thing.
Right.
So it could be, they could do something like that. I could see where they could turn that into something meaningful. With Starfleet Academy, I'm a little bit less clear on how you could do that,
It
other than
just being a hologram, which doesn't sound
either a
exciting to me.
hologram, which just doesn't really work unless you're going to go the Otoy route and have Shatner just being like how Mark Hamill did Luke in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. And
Yeah.
so they could do that route and have like a Kirk from the movie period running the cadets through the Kobayashi Maru, but that would feel very cameo-ish, and I don't think that
just not
Shatner would
interesting.
want to do that.
Agreed.
Outside of that, they could do a time travel episode, and go back to that time. I mean, obviously they're going to try to go back to TOS, because everyone has an obsession with going back to TOS, not to the films, which is weird, because it's like, why not recreate the more awesome period with uniforms and designs?
I have always been a much bigger fan of the TOS films, but again, it goes right back to the fact that that's how I was introduced to Star Trek. It was in the 80s, and so going back and watching the old show, all the much older fans are very beholden to TOS, and I can't believe they updated the effects
I
or
love
whatever it is.
TOS, but I just think that using the movie era, the look would just, it would jive better with the design choices nowadays, and two, they wouldn't be stepping on the Canonista's toes of like, oh well, we had to redesign a bunch of the TOS stuff because it doesn't look good on the screen now. So that's how I would do that. But those are really the only ways that I could see them bringing Shatner's Kirk back, and they're just, and especially for Starfleet Academy, it's just out there. So I don't know if it would be that.
Yeah, I 100% am in alignment with you about the aging up bit, and then it becomes, well, that's part of the episode, that how do we get him back to being who he was and whatever it is, and then having Kirk have this meaningful time period, or doing a split, like, oh, now we've split them, and it's it's like the enemy within, but maybe it's not, quite so negative or something. So I could see that. I'd be fascinated. Now, in this article, if you keep scrolling down, it does make mention from Picard season 3, which I just enjoyed enormously. It says there's a tantalizing tease from Picard season 3 of Kirk's remains being kept at Daystrom Station,
and
where
theoretically not being fully dead. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, it says where the display text has the name Project Phoenix, which of course certainly implies that a resurrected Kirk / clone of Kirk may be in the works by Section 31 in the early 25th century. This might lend to the idea. The show that he's referring to is the Newson and Simeon comedy show, which I don't really know about that. Shatner has done sitcoms. He did a somewhat memorable turn on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is a sitcom I loved when I was a teenager.
I mean, Shatner is fun when he does funny roles, like he's done Boston Legal and some stuff. So like, he can do that. I'm not opposed to it. It would just be, I just don't know what I feel about James Tiberius Kirk being in that position.
Yeah, I agree with you. So this is great, and much like all things in entertainment, there's the ebb and flow. This could end up going absolutely nowhere. But I think it's always fun to speculate, and it's interesting that after now over 30 years outside of that role, that we would end up seeing him again.
I mean,
because
all
he's
as like a really far out there option, if there was a secret version of Prodigy season 3 in the works and they brought back Kirk a la Janeway hologram,
Oh,
that would
gotcha.
be fun. Because
Yeah.
I think Shatner would be definitely more amenable to voice acting, because he has come back to do Kirk for video games and voice stuff
Right.
before, even
But
after Generations.
it's
So,
much less of a commitment
yep.
to do it
It's
that way.
less intensive, so he
Right.
doesn't have to
Yeah,
worry about the
exactly.
makeup. He doesn't have to worry about the schedule. He can just
Right.
sit in a booth, do his thing,
Right.
and be done. So maybe they'll do that. I don't know.
Exactly. I don't know, but as something on that develops, obviously we're going to talk about it here. But anyway, all right. Well, that gets us now into talking about our next random episode, random SODE, if you prefer.
Speaking about voicing,
Yeah. Well, yeah, what a beautiful segue. As we all know, we are kind of in a floating cycle with the third season of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. It is done. It is in the can, and they refuse to tell us when they're going to put it on the air. So, when that does come along, the first part of our show will be dedicated to the 2 episodes that aired within the time period prior to us recording. Right now, we're playing a fun game, as you know, where we are recording. We're recording about an episode that is chosen by random by one of usually our Discord participants or friends, or one of the 2 of us. So the dice was rolled on this one. I actually think this one was my choice, and it was interesting for me because it is an episode of Star Trek: The Animated Series, the 1970-73 22 episode return of Star Trek, which its canonicity of it has been debated. It's definitely partial, in so much the fact that elements of it have come into official canon. But we haven't talked about it on this show since, I believe, a super brief rundown. And Peter, I don't even know if you were with me, but it was with my old co-host Rich. We did like a big series overview. Yeah,
I wasn't there for that.
Yeah. So that's, when, as I've hinted about, when we do finally reach the end of the road with our first pass at talking about every single episode of every Star Trek that's ever aired, we will, after some other projects we have planned, get back to doing it again, because while podcasts live on forever, I know I could never expect someone to go back and listen to 200 300 episodes of us talking. That's an enormous time commitment, so I'd really rather turn a fresh set of eyes to talk about episodes again. But at any rate, we've never done a breakdown of an individual episode of the animated series. So I'm excited about this. This is season 1, episode 15, titled The Eye of the Beholder. Beaming down to a planet to search for the crew of a missing ship, the crew is captured by alien inhabitants. Dun, dun, dun. All right, let's kick it off. Peter, I've got notes, you've got notes, but I want you to talk. Walk me through this episode. Give me some thoughts.
So this episode is... it begins as like a classic rescue episode of like, oh, there's a ship that's gone missing and we need to go find people. And hilariously, there's this whole discussion about following the book and doing all of that. And then Kirk just like, man, I'm going down the planet anyway.
Yeah, right. There's no book. I don't like the book. I eat the book. I wipe the butt with my book. The book, whatever.
It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
So they beam down. They're like, oh, this is a weird planet. Oh, there's monsters. They get attacked by Discount Godzilla.
Changing the name of the episode. Thank you for that. Please continue.
Yeah, so they get attacked by Discount Godzilla. You definitely know he's made out of rubber because McCoy doesn't die when he falls on him.
Right. I was trying to figure that out myself, because I'm like, all right, because when they zap him, and I love that he's coming at him, he's like, "Meow, meow, meow," if you're watching us on YouTube, "Meow, meow, meow, meow," and then he does that like 3 or 4 times. And again, I know Filmation is cheap. I grew up watching He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which is
it's hilariously like
exactly the same
exact
as the show.
Animal roar that they use for like everything at that period.
Yes, I love the audio dubs. We got some of the classic like whoop 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 whoop, the sound that noise, which I know wouldn't stand out to you, but if you heard it, you'd be like, oh my god. Yeah.
It's hilarious sometimes watching animations or other things, because I'll be watching and like, hey, that's a sound from Star Trek, or hey, that's a sound from that thing.
Quick sidebar: if you're watching the MCU currently, Daredevil is on right now as we're recording this in March of 2025. The new Marvel television beams in with the TOS beam out noise.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard that yet. I need to go.
Just so weird, because it's Disney, not Paramount.
I mean, the hilarious thing is there's so many Star Trek sounds that get used for a lot of things. You wonder if it's just like they just like, eh.
Yeah.
Like like back in the day, there was like Star Trek sounds in like Transformers. There was
Right.
Star Trek sounds in
Just
all
like
sorts of things.
it's like
It's just
Star Wars noises, like lightsaber noises are like just like little like when the carbon like when the
yeah,
carbonite block pops out, there's that noise, and that shows up in other stuff. Usually, it was other Fox stuff at that point because Fox owned
yeah.
Star Wars, but
But
it just
it's really
proliferates.
funny when you hear sounds, and since I help with an audio show, sometimes I pay attention to the sound effects, and so
Yeah, me
it's
too.
really really funny. But anyway, we have McCoy eventually is not dead because it's like, logically, Captain, we can't move the tail. We need to dig him out. So they dig him out.
Right, which they don't show. It's just in the next
Don't show.
scene
It
he's
looks
fine,
the same.
and you don't see a hole. It's just like, well, the hole's over
No,
there,
it's
I
just
guess.
there.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but they dig him out, and then shortly after that, they get captured by these giant Dr. Seuss animals that are slugs with giant tentacles with hands,
Yeah.
who are evidently telepathic.
They're big like slugs almost, or they look like they look like cannolis or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're pink. They're like jet pink, which
Yeah.
is just a great
with like big
color.
sad eyes.
Yeah,
and-
so it's a slug, but it's almost like a slug, but it's also the bugs from Starship Troopers. If you remember that old
Yeah.
chestnut of a film.
Yeah, they're a very interesting design, and I see here in the commentary that they had is like, yeah, this is an alien that never would have worked in the live action series. Like, no kidding.
Yeah, most of this wouldn't have, which was really that my fondness for the episode really springs from that concept. They really made the best, even though it kind of looks shitty. Sorry, I mean, like they made the best of kind of what they could do, but even the animation, like the hawks that come shooting down those creatures, they have one clip that they show like 4 times of them just going and making the same noise that again it's from a memory bank of noises, but even if you watch like the very first shot, first of all, going back even before that, just as a general note, they work so hard at making I wrote a non-legally actionable music score to be the theme, because it's not the Star Trek score, but it's like super bouncy and it's kind of fun. So I like it in its own regard, but it's like, but that's not really the Star Trek music. But when you get past that and then the title card for the episode, you get what is the most prototypical Enterprise moving over a planet, but it's so bad because it's clearly it's
clearly a plastic animation plate being dragged across another one.
It's two cells
with a third being dragged across it to get the blinky lights that doesn't line up properly.
Right,
which is really fun.
I didn't even necessarily, but even just to notice all the fuzz and the dust that is on
the fingerprint smudge that's above the ship as it's getting dragged along.
It's just that. But again, Filmation, that's what they did. They were on the cheap.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of funny to notice.
Right, exactly. But the beauty of it is, as we go through this, is that we don't lose any real part of the story.
No.
The story still stays consistent. We've got a very good typical, and again, the writer of this is, now I don't have that in front of me. But I'd have to scroll back to the notes. But the writer of this, it wasn't a name that jumped out at me. But remember that TAS, or the animated series, had a lot of great writer talent from the original
David
series.
P. Harmon.
Yeah, so I mean that's just not a name that I know. But that doesn't mean anything. I don't know every writer who ever worked
the
on
action.
Yeah.
In the Deadly Years.
There you go. Now this clearly didn't have the humor component of the first one, but it did have some of the Star Trekkiness of the second one that you mentioned, which was the Deadly Years is the one that we catch virus and we all get older, and old age makeup is hilarious when you consider that. Yeah, when you consider that any of the actors who are still alive don't look anything like, however, are way older than they were supposed to be back then. So, but yeah, I thought they told a great kind of Star Trekky story. I have just a couple of notes. I wonder, because there's a lot of people who kind of speculate, well, this is the 5th year of the 5-year mission, and if it was to be considered canon, but both Spock and Bones have the 2 solid rank stripes of being a commander, officer level 5. Spock already was, McCoy was not. So I'm wondering, but Spock is a full commander, or McCoy is a full commander in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and you could think, well, he came back and they threw him a bone and gave him a promotion, which is funny because since nobody gets paid, it doesn't, in a lot of ways, doesn't really matter if you get another rank stripe or whatever. It's just respect. It's respect, right? But I wondered if that's if that's what it was supposed to be. So we get the crew of the other vessel. I did like how they,
Ariel.
how they point out that a captain, someone who is not a captain by rank, can still command a vessel, which is incredibly common in navies around the world. You'll get a lieutenant commander, a commander, a sub commander. Even when you see them in movies, like the commander of a submarine is usually a commander, an O5
Yep.
by rank.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I didn't. What was? Oh God, April was watching for a minute of this. I did absolutely love that McCoy's rough guess of the diagnosis of the crew member who was laying there under a sheet. What looks like it's a bug bite. I'm like, you're not even actually looking at her. You're all standing over here talking before he gets his little medical bag back. I thought that was pretty funny. You can tell they have kind of a limited voice cast because you have a woman in a blue uniform from the other ship who is just Majel Barrett. The voice isn't even at all different. It's just Nurse Chapel. Speaking of Majel Barrett, she also voices Maress, who's our very first Cation character, the cat lady, which I'll talk about in our notes, because we did actually get a fair amount of feedback, and I'm super psyched about that. So just to wrap this up, obviously the aliens, in the end of them, it ends up there in this intergalactic zoo, which is like the cage. The aliens figure out that they should let them go because Scotty actually beams up the child of these other two aliens, and then giving them back, they said, "Oh, we should let you guys go," and they send them off with come back in 20th or 30th century, you apes, primitive apes. Very cool.
Our centuries are theirs.
Exactly. I gave this one a 7 out of 10, to be honest with you. I thought it was a good traditional innovative Star Trek story, which is it's the hallmark of everything. But again, I have a hard time letting go of how bad Filmation is at making animation. Like you said, it's great, it's fun that you see that they're dragging the ship across, and all right, I get that, but I mean,
to be fair, some of that animation, some of the imperfections would have been covered by televisions at the time,
right?
Which is something that like a lot of Star Trek shows actually relied on, which is why sometimes when you have the up-res, you're like, doesn't look as good.
Maybe we should down-res it.
So like, especially like early Next Generation particularly relies a lot on camera blur. But that's something that that's just a note for the animation. But
right.
But overall, I would tend to agree with you. It's a 7 out of 10. It's not a bad episode. It's got an interesting idea. It's got some funny moments. It's got some decent character stuff. It's got a thought that is developed a little bit. So I mean, it is kind of the conceit of like, oh, there's this super advanced race that's putting us in a zoo because we're just animals to them.
Right.
It's not my favorite thing that gets done because it is done in other sci-fi stuff too.
True. Yeah, it is. It's a trope. Yeah, without a doubt.
And it is one of those like, okay, so sentient species can tell that another species is sentient, and we're just going to put it in a zoo anyway. Like, it's not like we're putting in like, I don't know, an aardvark or something. Right, because it's like that
discount aardvark.
Yeah, but like an aardvark doesn't really have like culture, or it's not wearing clothing, it's not carrying tools.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's not carrying tools. It's not communicating in a language.
Right.
And so it's just one of that part, especially with like the cage and this and other stuff. It always strikes me as a little weird. Of like, is the conceit that when we evolve to a certain point, we just cease to see the humanity of those who are less than us? That seems a little dark.
Yeah. Let it be known that Peter hates aardvarks. Sorry. A couple of notes, and then we'll read some comments. But director David P. Harmon, dissatisfied with this episode, later remarking, "I wasn't happy with it." Wow, that's really thoughtful. He went on to relate that it wasn't because he didn't believe animation, which disappointed him generally, was suitable for the emotional depth of Star Trek. Maybe.
I mean, that's fair for that period.
Yeah.
But we've seen since that it's gotten better with that. So
exactly,
limitations of the time.
Exactly. So as we've said, the design of the Lactrans, which is the slug people, well suited for animation. Their mode of travel was very economical, and since the animators did not need to illustrate moving feet, the large edge of the island. There's a great one with the eyes where it gives Kirk the side eye, which I think that's the best part of the episode. He goes,
Yeah.
when Kirk is fiddling about. Was what the side I was in, and that was meant to convey emotion without dialogue, which I think they did really well. So all right. Yeah, some comments from our various socials. So, because I did a post, as I do not only in Facebook in general, though we've moved more over towards our Discord, the various Discords that I participate in. Our Discord, United Trekkers of Michigan, which I've talked about, and I'm on 2 Discords for SFI chapters, for which I'm not a member, but I'm more of an advisor. And we did get some feedback from those. So my good buddy Jonathan Snedeker, who you hear all the time over on our Patreon, asked what characters were added to the series that are considered regulars, and that would be Eric's, who is I wrote the 3-armed orange dude. I don't remember the name of his race, and Maress, who is the Cation cat lady, precursor to Dr. Tana from Lower Decks, who is a very different character. Slash Ritter, who is one of our very regular participants on both SFU and the United Trekkers Discord. He says, TAS was my first Trek, for better for worse, back during early reruns. Maybe most of those episodes are judged to be not great, but it got me interested enough to watch the early movies in TNG from its launch, which is, you know what? I kind of have the same thought process about the JJ movies. I don't love them, but you know what? If it got the franchise out there and then got people to go back and watch and help generate
water in the desert.
Yep, and it got it back on TV. That's great. Alex Page, who is from the Discord of the USS Cutty Sark, that's the shirt I'm wearing, which is a chapter in Kalamazoo, Michigan. If you're interested to know more about it, send us a ping and we'll connect it. He says TAS is the undisputed winner of the most funky opening theme in the Star Trek series, which is what I said. Thank you, Alex.
That is accurate.
Yeah,
we could debate whether or not other themes are better or worse, but this is definitely the funkiest.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then finally, Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell, which is a pseudonym, from Threads, and with some social media,
you never know. He could be breaking the space timeline continuum.
Could be. You don't necessarily know who people are, but I appreciate your comment, which is I have the Star Trek TAS DVD set. It took a while to get through it. It's really tough to watch because the animation is so bad, and the music. My God, the music, and makes a silly face. But if you can get past the production itself, it's not that bad. Tidbit, the force field belts were a holdover from the original series. On TOS, it was cheaper to make spacesuits than to do a visual effect of a force field, but on TAS, it was easier to do a force field effect than to animate a spacesuit. This is a chicken and the egg kind of situation. So,
yep. I actually brought those. Well, I did. I animated it, but we brought them back in the audio show that I was working on.
Oh,
for
fun.
an episode. We brought back the force field belts.
I love it. So. Good deal. All right. Well, that wraps it up. We'll be back with another random episode in our next segment. But we are going to move on. So we'll take a brief pause and pick up with our special guest, Ellie Littlechild, Littlechild. Oh my God. Hello. I knew it was little something. And we actually recorded with her first because of the time differential. She's over in England. But we talk about the second segment.
Time differential. That's a tool that will be important.
Oh my goodness. It will be. But she talks with us about several episodes of season 6 of Star Trek Voyager. So a quick pause and we will be right back. Hey, all right, we're back to talk about the second part of Star Trek Voyager, and we have a guest. So I'd like to introduce everybody, if you're watching on YouTube or you just listen to us on audio, to Ellie Littlechild of TrekCulture. What a great pleasure it is to have you on the show. Good morning or good afternoon in your case. How are you?
This afternoon. Thank you. I'm good, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, as I was telling you in the pre-roll, and as we have always done on all of our Secret Friends Unite podcasts, when we have somebody new who's guesting with us, I like to just learn a little bit about how they got into the life, if you see my air quotes. Like, how did you get into enjoying Star Trek?
Well, it's quite interesting, actually, because, there's so many people that go, I grew up watching Star Trek, and I didn't not watch it. My mum was and is a massive fan of The Next Generation. So I did grow up being exposed to Star Trek, and I could tell you who all the Next Generation characters are. I couldn't tell you about specific episodes. I mean, I was young. But I actually didn't start watching it properly until I got the job with TrekCulture.
Oh my gosh. And that was, I assume, fairly recently within the last few years,
that
right?
was beginning of 2022. is when I
Oh my
started.
gosh. Not even 3 years ago, or just 3 years ago. Wow, that's crazy. So you've
Yeah.
been doing just a ton of catch up. I mean, Peter is, you guys are about the same age. I'm estimating I'm a great deal older because I grew up watching TNG. I was about 11 years old when TNG came on, and I had enjoyed the Star Trek films before that. And so, yeah, I'm kind of an OG fan going back to that legacy era. But I'm always thrilled to hear people are discovering that old timey Star Trek culture now, because it's, my, kind of my life and my lore is steeped in it. So that's awesome. And you're a particular fan of Voyager. That's the big click for you, because I know when we connected, I know you have met Kate Mulgrew on several occasions. You've interviewed her. So yeah, that would be an amazing get for us. We do a lot of interviews on our Spotlight Patreon segment. So we're actually, Peter and I, planning to talk to Tim Russ a little later this year. But we talked to a lot of comic creators and stuff, because that's the other kind of part of what we do. But we have talked to some Star Trek authors, John Jackson Miller, Greg Cox. So anyway, let's get into talking about some Voyager in all this. So we've got the second group of episodes from the 6th season. And I'm just going to jump right on in with episode 8 of the season, which is One Small Step. Robert Picardo, awesome guy, who I've said I've met him several times. Absolutely love him. Did the directing, teleplay by Mike Wallager, Jessica Scott, and Brian Fuller, and Michael Taylor. Don't recognize those first two names. And then Mike and Jessica also did the story. So I get the vibe of like maybe a slush script or spec writers or whatever it is. This is from November of 1999. Voyager is nearly hit by a mysterious subspace mass, and the crew theorize that the debris is an ancient Earth-Mars ship. My goodness. All right. And a great guest appearance by the awesome Phil Morris, who I met at Fan Expo last year in Chicago. Super nice guy. Oh, my goodness. And he's got a Trek pedigree going all the way back to the original series as a child actor. So he's been in everything. So, Ellie, how are you feeling about this episode?
Do you know what? I'm not going to lie. In the grand scheme of Star Trek episodes, this is one where when I rewatched it, was like, oh yeah, now I remember this one.
Yeah, right. I get, even after all these years, I get that too. And I watched all of these with my wife, April, within the last decade, because when we got married, because she hadn't seen everything. So we made sure we watched everything. So yeah, I totally get it.
I mean, this is the thing. I've only watched them Voyager, I didn't start watching until 2023, probably around this time in 2023. Because my plan originally was to watch them in release order. So I started with the original series and the Next Generation, but then other things happened, like Picard season 3. So I was like, actually, now I'll watch Picard. Now I'll watch Strange New Worlds. And so by the time I got to Voyager, it was about 2023, early 2023. So I've only watched them all within the last 2 years. So the fact that this one wasn't one that stuck in the brain, I mean, it's not a bad episode, but even in just these 6 episodes, I think of the 6 that we are going to discuss, it's probably the one that doesn't stick in the brain as much. I am a big JC shipper, which I will get onto in a later episode discussion. But it means I am also one of those people that I like all the characters, but I like when there's an episode that's focused on my favorite characters, I pay more attention. So I at first thought, oh yes, we've got a Chakotay focused episode, because it kind of starts like it's going to be. But then like halfway through the episode, he gets zapped and spends the rest of it just like laying on a bed. And I'm like, oh, okay. They tried to make it a Chakotay episode. And then
just ran out of gas.
Put him on a bed, and he just kind of wasn't there for the rest of it. He just got to listen. So that was, to me, I was like, oh, so close. Because I think by this point of the show, by season 6 is when they kind of gone, we don't really know what to do with him anymore.
Oh my goodness. Oh man. Peter.
This was an interesting episode. I kind of agree that it wasn't when I turned it on. First I saw the description and then watched it. I was like, oh yeah, this did happen.
We're sorry, Bob Picardo.
I know, I feel a bit bad. It's Bob Picardo's. Was it his directorial debut?
I believe so. If not, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
The acting and the pacing and everything is really, really good. It's just that what happens isn't terribly
Interesting in any way,
memorable.
shape, or form. Yeah.
Like the fact that like I thought it was really interesting that we had a Earth Mars ship that was hilariously somewhat reminiscent of the ship from The Martian.
Oh my gosh, I picked that out.
I
That's
don't,
funny.
but that's
It's
just because
prescient.
that's
Yeah.
how NASA builds stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
But so that was kind of funny, but it was also interesting to me to have like certain readouts and all the control. I like NASA tech. I like technology in general, so it was just interesting to see the different sets that they had to build for this particular episode.
Yeah.
Some of them felt like maybe they had yoinked from some lot somewhere.
That's often the way it worked back in those days.
Oh,
There's so
yeah.
much.
Especially because, like this
Yeah.
was around the time like Apollo 13 and a lot of these other things were being done, so there was probably a
Right.
lot of NASA gizmos laying around.
Yeah, right.
But it was interesting seeing that you could see where some of the design choices for Enterprise came in later. Some of the control designs, some of the uniform bits.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a lot, but it was still interesting for that. The character development in this episode was a little wonky because it felt like
That's
there was
fair.
trying to be some big thing with Chakotay needing to follow orders more, which is kind of a weird point with this in season 6 because it's kind of
Yeah, right.
to death. And then 7 doing kind of the same thing. Like it was well acted, but it was just weird. Like especially there was one scene that stuck out to me when Chakotay first wakes up on the bed and 7
In
gets
bed,
like
of course.
yeah, so the medical pod.
Yeah.
And he just wakes up and then 7 gets like really mad and like has like this very 7 but very emotional reaction, and it was just one of those like
kind of a little out of character. Yeah.
And also, I mean, right at the beginning of the episode, she's literally not following the rules. She's literally causing ship-wide problems because she's not following the rules. It's like, you can't get mad at him for not following the rules. It's exactly what you were doing.
Oh my God,
So
she is Star Trek's petulant
so
teenager.
they're
I'll
trying
tell
to do
you.
like this juxtaposition, and it doesn't quite work.
I tell you what I did like. I liked that we started to see a little bit of that exploration of Chakotay being like a paleontologist.
Yes.
Because we've never really, I mean, we did explore it a little bit earlier on, but this is what I mean. We never really got to explore much depth to his character and who he was before the Marquis, but after he'd left his homeworld. You know, that kind of what drove him to leave his homeworld and join Starfleet, and that kind of desire to learn and things. And we started to see it, and then he got zapped.
Yeah. Every single time. Yeah, you're right. It's just that, which is why I have dubbed this episode Chakotay's napping on a bed again. That'll be our beta, title as we get into it. Well, I have to agree. I would say that probably the strongest, like little, I'm an old guy. I kind of get emotional sometimes. A little scene at the end. And again, it's weird. They had his eulogy on the bridge, where it seems like maybe it's kind of like Geordi and Data always testing dangerous devices in front of the warp core on the Enterprise D. It's like, what are you doing? Pick a different spot. But hey, it's episodic television. You got to use the sets you got. But 7 walking up and then quoting the end of the 2015 or 2055, whatever the World Series was with Buck Pokai, which was a great DS9 grab. Yeah, I thought that was pretty great. So that kind of gave me a like, but yeah, you're right. She was like, I don't like this and I like this, but I don't like you, but blah, blah, blah. She was all over the place, very much all over the place kind of episode. So
even in that final scene, Chakotay still in bed, a different bed, but still in bed. Like, why is he not there? If that were me and I idolize this guy, I'd be like, no, I'm going to the bridge. You can hold me up if you need to, but I'm going to be there.
I can sit in my chair. My chair is there.
Lean him against the wall. Well, I think that wasn't there. He would be right, and he'd have a front row seat too, because that's where the tube was between the chairs and then Tom's console. So
it just didn't make sense to me that he wasn't. That it meant so much to him, and he was just listening from sick bay.
Right, not even on the closed circuit. He wasn't even watching it on YouTube or something. So yeah, kind of lame. Don't like it. All right, well, let's move on. Episode 9 is the Voyager conspiracy. Directing is Terry Wendell. Not familiar with the name, but Joe Minosky doing the writing, getting the sole writing credit, and he's obviously very big with Star Trek overall. From November of '99, after assimilating Voyager's data from the past 6 years through an enhancement to her Borg implants. Whoa, they've never done that before. Sorry, I guess I editorialized a little bit here and there. 7 of 9 suspects the ship did not arrive in the Delta Quadrant by accident. Dun, dun, dun. Oh my goodness, yes. Shock and awe, clutch the pearls. Ellie, what do you think?
I do quite like this episode, but probably not for the same reasons that most people like this episode.
Yeah.
Because I like this episode for the multiple candlelit JC dinner scenes that we get. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, because you can't tell me
Aw.
that's not a romantic dinner. You don't have dinner
Absolutely.
with your friends with the lights down and the music playing and the candles lit. Like, there's a lot of flirting.
It's not the first time they did it in the Timeless episode where they all end up dying and then they go back. Yeah. So they're having like, oh, would you like to have dinner? And we'll talk about, it's just, there's a lot of, she's standing and talking to him with a hand on his chest. And it's like, come on.
There's a lot of flirting in this episode.
My God. Oh my goodness.
But I do feel that it's a good message to give in this episode. First of all, here's the consequences of when you just try and cheat the system. If you just read the files like everybody else, then this would not have happened, Seven. Why'd you have to try and cheat the system? But I also think it's a good episode, particularly in the day that we are now, in the time that we're living in now, of how like misinformation can be spread so easily.
Oh my goodness,
and how one person saying something with conviction and confidence can bring so many people to believe that to be true because they trust in the person that's telling them. And how one event can be reported on in so many different ways, and you can come to so many conclusions based on one piece of information. So I think it's one of those episodes that probably was quite a good message for the time, but it's kind of aged really well in the days that we live now, that it's still a message that is very relevant to the time that we're living in now and how easy it is to spread information. I mean, I feel that as someone with a following, I feel a responsibility when I post anything that I don't want to post anything that people might take to be fact. So I won't post things about, maybe political things or things that, because I have a following, because people trust in what I say, I don't want to spread misinformation. So I kind of really thought that this was a good message in this episode, because it's so easy for that to happen now. So I'd rather report the things I do know with that certainty, rather than just giving you my opinion, the conclusions I've come to, but you might take that as fact because I'm a trusted source in your mind, but I'm not a trusted source. So yeah, that's what this episode kind of sparked in my mind.
Excellent. Good deal. Peter.
I would tend to agree. There was something that also stuck out to me about how this episode went about that, where it was Seven giving the false information on both sides. And I thought that was an interesting idea, because there are people who do flip-flop on their opinions regularly. In terms of like,
good Lord, yes.
In terms of like, they're very vehemently against one person one day, and then the next day they're very vehemently against a different person on the other side for no apparent reason. So with this one, there is kind of a reason, but it's also not, because it's just like, oh, she got a little bit more information but misinterpreted it entirely. But the interesting thing is, like you said, like she had the one thing that she was right about, being the photonic fleas, and then it's like, oh well, she must be analyzing the data all correctly. No
Incorrect assumption. Trusted source, but then a trusted source just going rogue.
So it was really interesting, but at the same time, for me, there was a little bit of a stretch of the disbelief for me, simply because I guess at this point of the season of the show, I always thought that Chakotay and Janeway knew each other better than that.
Although they do kind of, once they communicate and talk to each other,
once they actually talk to each other, it gets resolved very, very quickly. But there was just something on Janeway's face when Seven told her that it was like, I'm not sure that she believes it, and then she's acting on it. So it wasn't that far, especially because it got resolved fairly quickly. But it was just but it was still really well done.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's funny, you watch and we don't try to dig too political here, but just watching the news right now and watching the flip-flopping of the politicians in our government right now and people outside of our government, and this person's great, but I used to say this person sucks, and da-da-da-da. Yeah, it's the exact same kind of thing. Where Seven is, but again, through the benefit of Star Trek storytelling. She knows what she doesn't necessarily know that she's talking crazy talk, because it all, by the numbers and by this data she's misinterpreting, it all seems like it's above board. So interesting story. InfoWars, in the 24th century. Ellie, to your point, being so much more relevant in this day and age. So yeah, I thought it was an absolutely terrific episode. So cool. All right, now we're on to one of the big hitters. Oh boy, did I love this episode. Guest Star Central. Episode 10 is Pathfinder. Mike Vihar doing the directing, a story by David Zabel, and teleplay by Zabel and Ken Biller. From December of 99, we get good old Lieutenant Barclay back on Earth, getting overly involved with holographic recreations, shocking, of the Voyager crew in his attempts to contact them. Guest star is the delightful Marina Sirtis, who I've met several times, and she's a pip, as Deanna Troi. Ellie.
Mm-hmm. So, as I said earlier, I kind of tend to, when episodes are focused on my favorite characters, I pay more attention than others. So I remember the first time watching this, and because it's such an important episode to the journey of Voyager, but it's also an episode that doesn't feature the crew of Voyager very much.
5 minutes.
And so I
Less
remember
than 5 minutes.
Yeah. So when I first watched it, I was like, I don't like this episode. Where are all my favorite characters?
Right.
Why? This is the Next Generation. Why have I not got my favorite characters here? But since then, having rewatched it, having kind of got more deep into the lore and all those things, it's such a significant episode. And I think it's really fitting that someone like Barclay is the person that fixated on them and then was the one that ultimately made that discovery and was able to establish that the communication between them. I think I can believe that the higher ups go, well, we tried for a while, but we've got bigger fish to fry. And it's one of the kind of little people who's actually kind of focusing on it and going, no, there are people out there, they have families. And I mean, he's not even connected to any one of these people.
Right,
personally.
exactly.
And so I think I think it's great that it was Barclay. And yeah, in hindsight, I appreciate it much more than I did the first time I watched it.
Right. That's the beauty of Star Trek. Because again, I've been watching Star Trek for 40 years or 30 years. 40 years. Oh my God, boy, I'm old. I've been watching it since the mid 80s. You know what I mean? The first episode I ever saw, I was 6 years old, and it was the early 80s. It was actually a rerun of the original pilot of the original series. But the lessons that you get and the vibe that you get, the older that you get, or even subsequent viewings, if you're close to the same age, can be remarkable. You know what I mean? And also seen in the context of, well, this is season 6, but then these episodes followed, because this is the first of several Barclay on Earth kind of focused episodes where, you get him as a cameo, and then you have, the episode in season 7 where the Ferengi are trying to kidnap Seven and get her back through because they want her nanoprobes and stuff, so that he comes back into play. And that you also end up seeing Marina as well. But I absolutely loved it and Peter, I'm sorry I jumped ahead of you. I don't know, I'm just babbling, but I'll toss it back to you. But I absolutely loved Barclay's holographic recreation, because you could tell the characters that he built, the models were all based on 1995 on the very first episode. So all of the Maquis are wearing their Maquis gear. I think we get kind of some retroactive hair. I think
we've got the Bun of Steel is back.
The Bun of Steel is back. I love it.
It's different. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that they do well with that, as opposed to the episode Fury with Kess, which is what I talked with John Champion about on an episode of Mission Log, which will be out in April. They did not. They slapped the Bun of Steel on Janeway in that one, but everybody else's hairstyles were the same. So it's just like kind of, I don't know. It annoyed me. I love, like Peter, I love costuming stuff. I love the little details. So that really nailed it. And I like seeing Barclay again in retrospect. Dwight Schultz is not really in the world anymore because of some reasons. But it is great to really remember him as a performer and in this particular role that I enjoyed very much. And again, this is a fulcrum point of the series. This changes everything, just like the 3-parter when the Hirogen were introduced back in season 4, when they first made contact. This kind of changes everything for the series. So, and I think they did it in a great way. And then they also, leave you wanting more. And I think, is this the first episode we get Richard Hurd playing Admiral Paris? Because
I believe so, yes.
there were some flashbacks of a different actor in season 1, I think season 1 and season 2. But yeah, I love Richard Hurd. He's, a heritage character actor who is, has left us by now. But he appeared in numerous genre series, and it's really great to see him. It's funny how both here and in the I think subsequent things, he's talking on the bridge and Tom is sitting there, but Tom follows protocol and he doesn't talk. He doesn't talk over his captain. I like that. It's very kind of militarily consistent, and I like that. You don't defer by getting yourself involved. The kids don't get involved when the grown-ups are talking. So I thought that was a nice
also,
grab.
since Admiral Paris is so picky about that sort of thing.
Yes, he is.
He's
a very particular man.
On the line.
Exactly. So Peter, please.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure what else to say other than the characters are really well done here. We get Barkley doing Barkley things, which is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Especially there's a really interesting conversation with him and his boss, whose name I'm forgetting.
Commander Harkins. Pete Harkins.
Commander Harkins. Yep. Where he's like, "Oh, I thought I was giving you a chance, but then I've enabled your hologram addiction, and you've kind of slipped." So it was just kind of like it was kind of cool how there was like an acknowledgement that this character has been somewhere, had growth, and then they're like, "Yes, we brought this back for a plot reason. Here's why." And we're also going to in-world acknowledge that this has happened and not gloss over it.
Right.
So I liked that. That was some very purposeful world building for the sake of the plot, which is something that doesn't happen a lot. So it was very, very cool how they worked that in there.
Yeah.
Also, there was the hilarious thing that, how long have you been here, Reg? Oh, I've lived here 2 years. I just haven't had a chance to unpack yet. Reg, you're living out of boxes.
Right, exactly. That seems right. A lot of quote unquote busy people are that way.
Oh, yeah. It was like, I can totally understand that, but it was really funny.
Yeah.
So there's lots of fun stuff. We get a new Midas array. So that's kind of fun, and some cool special effects with that. So it's nice to see that Barkley's right and not in like this really off the wall weird way, but he does the math, he does all the calculation, then he ends up being correct, and he's the one who connects them with Voyager. And then at the very end, through line through the episode is Barkley, since leaving the Enterprise, hasn't felt like he's had a family, and then at the very end we have the Voyager crew giving him an honorary membership of the crew of the Voyager.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool moment for Barkley as a character.
That he wasn't there for, of course. But...
He wasn't there for it, but they considered it.
You know
so
what? Maybe they sent him a picture.
The audience, though, there's a nice resolution there.
Somebody texted it to him. Here you go. Here's a picture of all of us. Click. So yeah, good stuff. Awesome. Good deal. All right. Moving on to a very fun episode, and it's kind of part 1 of 2, and we get the second half, I think, when we come back next week, is Fairhaven. Alan Craker is the heritage director that's done just so much directing, and so he's a very seasoned dude. But we have a writer of a name I'm not familiar with, Robin Bernheim, and this was the first episode of the 21st Century, airing on January 12th of the year 2000. The crew enjoys a respite inside a holodeck creation designed by Tom Paris, already kind of something to be suspicious of, while Voyager features the threat of an oncoming storm in space. Very typical Star Trek setup. So Ellie, how are we feeling?
So, I have thoughts on this episode.
By all means.
I won't comment on the Irishness of it. I'll leave that to Mr. Sean Ferrick. It's not my place to comment on the Irishness of it.
And even though I'm a big fan of Irish culture and of Irish descent, I will also refrain. Very smart.
But for me, I like the episode because it's a Janeway-focused story for a lot of it. I like that we see a softer side to Janeway. But I also feel that by this point in the season, because we've seen her so refrained from an intimate romantic life, it almost feels too out of character for her. For me, I would have preferred, I said I'm a JC shipper, right? But I always feel like I need to caveat that with more of an explanation, because it's more than me just thinking they should have ended up in bed together. Because I really feel like there was a missed opportunity with those two characters to have explored a really complex situation where it's not that they don't find each other attractive, it's not that they don't have this deep love for each other, but it's the fact that she cannot allow it to happen. She's the captain, she has to have these boundaries. And what I think would have been a more interesting storyline for Janeway, and to address kind of her celibacy, the sacrifices that she has made as captain, would have been to explore her and Chakotay not allowing themselves to act upon the feelings they share for each other, and really seeing the personal effects and how that affected them privately and in those kind of more quiet moments, as opposed to going, well, we probably should give Janeway a romantic storyline at some point. We'll give her a hologram. It just, for me, felt like a cheat. I felt like there could have been such a more complex exploration of the sacrifices she'd made. And I see that they did try to do that with the conversation she later has with the Doctor, and him kind of addressing, you can't have a relationship with any member of the crew. But I just think, for me, I would have liked to have seen it done in a more complex way than just giving her a hologram. It just seemed out of character to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what more to say other than it was strange, some of the choices made with some of the Irish stereotypes. I lived in Belfast for a year, so it was a little funky. So I did find it funny when the Doctor is like, I expect to see you two sinners at mass. That was funny. Being Catholic, I thought that was kind of funny. It was like, you're leaning into stereotypes a little bit, but it was amusing.
It was more of a lean. It was kind of like a fall over and do a tuck and a roll. And that part I wouldn't say. And I visited Ireland once, and it was many, many years ago. And it's the culture is very big in my American family, where I'm about third generation off the boat. And it was just like, it's a lot of it is way like stereotypically kind of way too on the nose.
Well,
but it's done for entertainment, and I get it.
Well, part of it is a lot of stuff is, one, it's from American television in the late 90s. We based a lot of things on stereotypes of films that we already had made. So just put that in the back of your brain. And then also, we're also creating an Irish town from Tom Paris, who notoriously knows a lot about many things. Very well.
Just ask him.
Lots of details. So the fact that it's not correct, they even joke about that. It's like, Tom, the harp is backwards. You're like, oh yeah, well. So like, there's nods to the fact that's like, yeah, okay. But it's also interesting. I thought that like, the thing that stuck out to me a little bit about this episode was when Janeway goes in and modifies the bartender.
Delete the wife. Classic line.
That gets memed to death, but yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But there was some really interesting parts about that. It's like, oh, I need him to be more thoughtful. I need him to be all this and that. And then you start to see, like, you see the relationship blossom a little bit, but then you also see, like, at a point, it's like, where's the bartender? He's drinking. I didn't program him to drink.
Right.
So, like you start to see these changes, and then you see... It does raise the question, though, especially because of the last scene where she brings him back and has a brief, like a breakup conversation with him. It raises the question again of like, okay, Tom, okay, Doctor, how much personality did you put into these? Are we pulling a Moriarty again? Did we accidentally create a town full of self-aware people? What's going on here? Like, the conceit is we didn't, but the way that some of it plays out, especially with the bartender, is just like, I don't know, guys.
Oh no, totally. Yeah, a fun episode. And again, like you said, in a lot of ways, the Irishness of it being the portion of the episode is very much of the time. 90s storytelling, kind of sitcomish. It'd be something you'd see on, Friends or Frasier or whatever it is, something, big of the day. So I get that. But yeah, to Ellie, I completely agree with you. The heart of the story is, should this be navigated in a different fashion for Janeway keeping herself captainly and separate and whatever it is, or is that a story that needs to be told? And again, a lot of it, I know I mentioned this in chatting with John over on Mission Log, a lot of the curse of the episodes that we see is that we're in, the world of 9 months a year, 26 episodes. We got to come up with something. Where ostensibly the storytelling of the streaming world of 6 to 10 episodes means things can be tighter, and it doesn't always work out that way. But sometimes you can really tell when it does, when you get that good punch and you get a tighter story. And I know, Ellie, I know you're a huge Doctor Who fan, and those series are always, because we've talked about those quite a bit on our Patreon. My buddy John and I have been breaking down some of the seasons. Those are usually between 6 and 12, if I'm not mistaken, per series.
Yeah, it used to be. I mean, it could go up to 14, but now we're only getting 8.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so the wonders of the streaming world. But ostensibly, you would hope that it would just kind of make stories tighter, and you could leave some things to the imagination. So it was fun. The episode, to me, it was fun, but in kind of a little bit more novel way that, yeah, you're right. I didn't think it really had the punch that certainly some of the episodes in this bunch do. But speaking of punch, now we get into what is widely considered to be one of the best episodes of Voyager, or so I've been told by some folks. Episode 12 of the season is Blink of an Eye. Gabrielle Beaumont. And I know there was a piece of trivia around this. She is one of the first in the vanguard of female Star Trek directors that really made her mark. And this may be her first segment. I'd have to double check. But if not, it's at the beginning of her career. Story is Michael Taylor with teleplay by Joe Minosky. So you've got some big hitters. January of 2000, Voyager is trapped in orbit about a planet with a space-time differential, very Star Trek-y, such that while its inhabitants live through the years, Voyager experiences mere minutes.
Not just
Ellie.
years, centuries.
Centuries, exactly.
I remember really loving this episode when I was first watching Voyager. And I hadn't seen it in a while, and I rewatched all these episodes prior to coming to talk about them all, and I just was reminded how much I love this episode.
You bet. Yeah.
I love the concept of it. I really like that it puts the Prime Directive into question. I mean, the characters on Voyager have broken the Prime Directive God knows how many times, but in this particular case, I really like that it puts it into question of, we have influenced these people unintentionally for centuries to them. So by not doing something about it, we're actually going to make it worse. So we're part of their culture. We can't just leave it. But I love the questions that it raises. It's a really interesting concept, and I love seeing the progress that the people on the planet make because they're driven by this thing in the sky, and they've got to reach it, and how just this thing that they cannot reach and they can't obtain just influences so much action in them. I think it's just such a brilliant concept. I really love this episode.
It's the Picard from Who Watches the Watchers back in TNG. The great Ray Wise in that episode, because they come to worship him as a god, and it happens really quickly, but it's like, we should build our entire society around this and about pleasing the Picard and this thing and that thing. So yeah, most definitely. Peter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good episode. Sorry, my brain just went somewhere else for a second.
That's okay.
It's I think this is the first time we've done this concept. Lower Decks does it again. I think even the Orville does it. Not as well, but
no Orville talk on this program.
It's fine.
I'm not a fan. I'm sorry. That's just me.
But it's really interesting how we see the development of where we get like snippets through different time periods of this planet. You see like the Stone Age, basically, then you see like the Middle Ages, then you see like the early Industrial Revolution, and then eventually we get up to space flight and such, where they finally send up a capsule and talk to them, and then that guy gets to see everyone. Right. So that's fun. But it's really interesting how we have the whole like idea of things are not as what they seem, where it's like, oh, there's the ground shaker, it's a deity. Oh, well, it's not, it's just a ship. So how things can sometimes be misinterpreted to be supernatural, even if they're not, which doesn't completely rule it out, but but it is interesting how we have that in there. So, but then you also have like, even in the Middle Ages, you have like, oh, I'm going to send up a letter. Like, it didn't get very far. It's a hot balloon.
Right. Come on, do it, hot balloon, do it.
Yeah, I'm sure it got up like maybe like a kilometer and fell.
Yeah. Well.
But at best, but it's really interesting in the conversations with the crew, how they're trying to figure out what to do about this. So yeah, it's just a really it doesn't quite turn the Prime Directive on its head, but it definitely is a different approach that we haven't seen
Yeah.
in episodes before.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Cool.
I tell you what I really love. Sorry to interrupt you there. I
No,
just
no,
remembered a
by all
scene
means.
that I love is when they send the Doctor down
Yeah.
and bring him back instantly, and for him to have lived an entire life. And I think it's interesting that it's the Doctor that gets to experience that, because he's always trying to develop himself more and learn more, and it was a really good
Right.
opportunity for him to really experience a lifetime and kind of appreciate what the crew have lost by
Right.
being down there, because he can program a holodeck program to experience it, but he really did live a life down there, and I just really appreciated that moment,
Oh,
especially with
absolutely.
the link to having a sort of son. And
Yeah. Yeah, which you would imagine he had a stepson or something like that, or who knows, because he says, "Well, it's a long story," but it's my stepson wouldn't be a long story because I have a stepson. It's not a long story at all. I married his mother, so it's not hard at all. This is, and again, I don't have a ton to add because you guys really broke it down, but this is and it predates it by quite a few years, and one of the very earliest appearances of actor Daniel Day Kim in anything. Who is great. Again, he was in Lost and Anne Roland 24, which is a show I love, and he's been in tons of stuff in TV and whatever it is. But yeah, got to start on Star Trek, which I'm always fond of looking back at that list of people who got their start in Star Trek. My absolute favorite is from Enterprise, quick sidebar, in the third season, in the episode where T'Pol and Archer have to go back to Detroit, which is my hometown. It's very laughable because Detroit doesn't have those beautiful mountains. But one of the Xindi reptilians is Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who is, of course, Negan on The Walking Dead. But you would never know it because he's wearing this ridiculous outfit. So anyway, yes, totally off kilter. But yeah, absolutely loved it. And it's heralded by all of the great things that you guys talk about. So absolutely one of the, I think, really stellar standouts, obviously of this group, but certainly of the season. And I think if you look at your top 10 list for the series, which we will be actually doing as we go further on down the line, once we finish talking about all the series, we're going to get back into a top 5, bottom 5 of all the series. And Ellie, hopefully you'll be back with us for that, because I'd love to put you in the driver's seat of that one. I think you
I'll
have a lot
start
to
making
say.
my list.
Yes. Oh yeah. You got a lot of time, but go for it. Yeah, we're yeah, it's hard to believe that by the end of this calendar year 2025, Peter and myself, and then my co-hosts who helped me start the show, will have talked about every single episode of Star Trek that has ever aired. That was my goal when I started all of this. But we do it in a brief fashion, otherwise we'd be doing it for 500 years. And so I'm happy to start this, but I also love drilling things down a little bit more. But all right, final episode, and what a joy this one is. Episode 13 of the season is Virtuoso. Les Landau, veteran director, handling those chores. Story by Raph Green. Don't know that name. Raph also did the teleplay along with Ken Biller. So I kind of get the feeling maybe it's a slush script, but then it's obviously taken over by somebody who's a mainstay on the writing staff to make it more Star Trek-y, would just be my overall vibe. From January of 2000, visiting aliens who have never before encountered music become fascinated with the Doctor's operatic singing and ask him to leave Voyager and join their society. Oh my goodness. Ellie.
I really like this episode as well. I love it when the Doctor sings. One of my favorite moments when the Doctor sings is actually an episode that you've already spoken about, but Tinker Tenor Doctor Spy is one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek ever. I love that episode so much. But I just love that the Doctor has this, because he learnt to sing. It's not just, everyone learns to kind of sing to the level that he does, but he wasn't programmed to do that. So for him to be appreciated for something that he's kind of really worked on to better himself and to explore, I think that was really interesting. I think my favorite moment has to be when he's signing autographs in the mess hall and Janeway goes in to be like, you need to get back to work. And he says, "Come now, Catherine." She's like, I wasn't aware we were on a first name basis. And she just fully reprimands him.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, only Chakotay gets to call her Catherine, okay? Stop it. But I just love that kind of the banter.
Yeah.
I think it's a really fun episode. And obviously it comments on how art is not just about the technique, but it's about the personal connection and the story it tells. And I think that's a really a good message to send. It's not just about whether you can hit the notes. It's about the expression within the art. So yeah, I really
Absolutely.
like this episode.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Peter.
Yeah. There's, like you said, there's some really interesting stuff about art here. I thought that it was interesting how at the end he's basically replaced by an AI.
Yeah.
So
Ouch.
yeah.
And he's
So,
already a program, so he's
yeah,
just replaced by a better program.
he's
Which, what
replaced
a
by a
bummer.
slightly upgraded computer program.
Yeah.
But like his big thing is like, but it doesn't have the pathos, it doesn't have the emotion that's there. And definitely if you listen to recordings of different people singing, you can tell like the masters from the apprentices, right? You can tell if someone like truly understands the music that they're singing, especially if they're singing what he's singing here, which is Italian. A lot of, at least Americans have no idea what he's singing.
Right.
But like if you understand what's being sung about, you can infuse that with a lot more meaning than just, oh, I'm going to hit the notes, I'm going to sing it in this, I'm supposed to be angry in this, but I don't know why. So you're not like emphasizing the words at the right moments because you don't know the language or whatever. So there's a lot of subtle commentary about how that works, which is interesting, especially in today's world where we have so many people who can just make anything,
Right.
either with AI or just on their own.
Mhm.
And it's just like, I want to make something, I want to throw it out there, I want to do this. Like, I mean, I use some crappy tools to make stuff that I laugh at that I don't share with anybody, but that's different.
Right.
So, no one needs to hear my D&D songs that are terrible. But
I do. Oh, folks, listen to this. Add us on social media. Maybe we'll get some of Peter's
three of
songs.
them are on YouTube. You can find them if you really want to.
Oh my goodness!
I had an AI sing it because I don't want to have anyone listen to me sing. But I wrote them. Anyway,
oh my gosh, I love it.
So, but it's interesting how you have all of that going on, and then at the end, the doctor is like very sad about it. But then Seven comes and reminds him of like, hey, yes, it ended badly. Yes, there's all this crap that happened, but you did make an impact on these people. They did love you. Like there was an appreciation for your art. There was an appreciation for you. And so there was something that helped soothe his hurt pride, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it was also it was another moment where you have that really great Seven and Doctor relationship there at the end.
Big time.
So
big time. Yeah. And talk about a relationship that just bums me out, never came to real fruition. They definitely did some good stuff with it, but I think this is a great example of something in life that I bump into from time to time with people, when their head gets too big to fit through the door about whatever it is, because we all know people who get a little too high on their own supply, kind of believe in their own BS. You bump into it a lot with cosplayers. I hate to say it. You bump into a lot with fan clubs. I also hate to say that too. People who really think what they're doing has a lot of meaning and I'm the boss of this and that. And you're just a guy. And quite frankly, it's like the old Eagles song, The New Kid in Town. You know what I mean? There's always going to be somebody else that's going to come along who's going to do it better. And
there's always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Streams.
Don't cross the streams. Do cross the streams. I love it. But yeah, I loved it for all those reasons. And it was just kind of nice to see the doctor get his comeuppance, because again, it's a great, it's a lower stakes episode because obviously he's not going to leave. And even if he did leave, there are other versions of the doctor out there. Like there's the one that's in his backup module that's with that planet that 700 years in the future, they turn it back on again. That could be a great connection with the Starfleet Academy show, since he'll be on that. What if his other self shows up from the Delta Quadrant? I think it'd be pretty cool. But I digress.
May or may not have a theory video that speculates about that on TrekCulture.
Wink, 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 wink. I'll be more consistent in watching. Absolutely. But a very fun episode. And it was nice to see the doctor kind of learn a stone cold lesson in humility. It really humanizes him, which is, again, much like with Data or Odo or Spock, your non-human character that reflects back on humanity, yet goes through that journey, or like Seven, of course, so we have two. And Tuvok. Oh my God, they're all over the place on this show. People who are, learning about the annoyance of being a human being. I think this does it really well. Well, all right, let's wrap it up by going around and picking a favorite of the group and a least favorite of the group. Ellie, you're up.
Oh, okay. My favorite, hang on, let's go with my least favorite was, because I kind of said it right at the beginning, was
Good.
One Small Step. Just
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it, just that didn't stick in the brain as much as the others.
Yeah.
And I'd probably say Blink of an Eye is my favorite.
Easy choice that I could easily agree with. I will say, Blink of an Eye would be mine too, but I loved Pathfinder because it was so pivotal. And yeah, you're right, I got a little bit more familiarity, but again, I'm a dyed in the wool TNG kid, so that really spoke to my here's characters I love from TNG. But I do get it that it's kind of a bummer that it's like, well, and it's like the Book of Boba Fett where they just jammed the Mandalorian in there. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you're trying to hijack it for the sake of ratings or whatever it is that you're doing it. And then least favorite, I'd probably also have to go with One Small Step. I just don't feel like the characters are really greatly written in that, and it's kind of all over the place. So yeah, I'm with you there. Peter.
For most favorite, I'm actually going to go with Virtuoso for this one. So as great as Blink of an Eye is, I'm just going to go with Virtuoso. There's some interesting stuff there, which we've already touched on. For least favorite, I'm actually going to go a little bit different, and I'm going to go with the Voyager conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
Just because it was kind of pinging all over the place, and it's not a bad episode. Just want to be clear, it's just out of this, not my favorite.
I do. I love this portion of the show because we have to do the Sophie's Choice sometimes with could be a group of great episodes, but still there's got to be one.
There was one where it was like all of the good Deep Space Nine ones, and it was like,
dang it. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, hey, that's the show. Ellie, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Totally awesome. Where do people find you out there in the world, in the cyber world, as it were?
In the cyber, yeah. I'm not going to give you my address.
That's a very good idea.
I'm on all the social media pages. Luckily, my name is very unique, so if you search Ellie Littlechild, chances are you're going to find me. But I'm on all the platforms. I try my best to make sure I post consistently across all of them, but there's quite a lot of them, so I tend to forget. And obviously on TrekCulture as well, which is primarily on YouTube. Who Culture as well for the Doctor Who fans.
Right.
But we do also have social media pages for all of those accounts as well, so I'm around.
Go, like, follow, and subscribe, etc., etc. And Peter?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social medias. I am not active, but you can find me.
Yes, he'll be there.
Yeah, you can also find me on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel where I play a Temerian engineer. We're actually using the the warp drive that we talked about on Voyager last time.
The Slipstream?
No, it's not the Slipstream. It's the folding subspace drive, which I can't remember the name of it right now.
Me neither.
You'd think I'd remember since I'm playing in the game with it, but whatever. So we're that, and then you can also find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Awesome. Good deal. And as always, I can be found on the major socials as at the C3 THREE. But I spend a whole heck of a lot of my time over at our Secret Friends Unite Discord talking about fun topics of all types. And then we have a Trek particular Discord called the United Trekkers of Michigan. Don't have to be in Michigan to join, but we had to call it something. And with that, I will say thank you again for joining us. Tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.